I woke up at the mouth of Dog Canyon, inside a New Mexican state park that borders the Lincoln National Forest, at the site of an unsolved historical mystery. Here, in Dog Canyon, an expatriated French recluse named François-Jean Rochas resided in the late 19th century. He irrigated the canyon stream to construct a vineyard, orchard, and manage over 400 head of cattle. While some believe Francois belonged to the secret trade guild Les Compagnons du Devoir, he also constructed the miraculous spiral staircase inside the Loretto Chapel in Santa Fe. His mastery of the vital asset of water would ultimately lead to his demise, as he was mysteriously shot dead the night of December 26, 1894. Some suspect it to be his neighbor, Oliver Lee, who shot him dead in order to gain access to this water, which he later sold to the railroads. Today, the state park bears his name. A short 60 miles south and I was back in Texas. I'd rejoin the trail at the aptly named Butterfield, Texas, and head just south of the U.S. Army Westbrook Range Complex to the birthplace of modern bouldering, as well as the largest concentration of masked pictographs in North America, Hueco Tanks State Park. I stopped into the local shop, the Hueco Mountain Hut, got some chalk, and got a guidebook. They've also got guide services and lodging at that shop. Hueco Tanks is so special for the same reason that François-Jean Rochas' irrigation canal was so important: water. To the Apache, the Butterfield stagecoach, the modern-day climber, and all the flora and fauna in between, water is everything. It was a great coincidence then that I happened to meet Sal Nuno.
So you're the man who takes care of the water here.
That's right. I'm the operator. I'm the supervisor, maintenance ranger, and I don't get a license from the state, a water license, Class D operator. So I take care of the water and drinkable water here out of any bottle you buy in the market.
It's awesome. What makes it so good?
Does it have all the chemicals that the city puts in there?
Now, Sal taught me everything he knows about water purification, and I'd love to share it with you. However,
we only add a little bit of chlorine to it.
The wind was just too loud. You're gonna have to visit and find out.
And that's your tank over there?
After I topped off my water supplies with that fine Texas water, I decided to check out some of the ruins of the Butterfield. When Ormsby traveled through here in 1858, the area suffered a severe drought. It sounds to me like they could have used Ranger Sal. From there, I set off to check off a major bouldering spot on my bucket list and climb Hueco Tanks. Now, only 70 people per day are allowed access to the North Mountain, and I was fortunate enough to be there on a hot enough day that I was given access. Now, I'm no expert, but I will share with you the problems that I solved. I climbed up the chains to North Mountain hotspot of the potatoes. I had no idea which route I wanted to take, so I decided to look for my first problem when I saw the writing. Known for these pictographs and inscriptions, I was excited to see more. Scanned the horizon, peering across the same landscape that generations of travelers had looked at before, and I noticed a squirrel warming up on one of the small potatoes. These water-eroded molten rocks brought life and held rainwater in this desert oasis. Now, they equally serve as unique holds for climbers seeking new challenges. In fact, many gyms feature these Hueco-Style holds on most routes. I started here at Baby Baker Boulder, and it was a fantastic way to gain some confidence. I followed my squirrel friend to the next spot in the Big Time Boulder area. It was here that I would try a series of challenging problems, unsuccessfully trying a V2 before taking a modified approach to the problem, pull the pin. It's the remainder of the alcove hanging over the previous one, this cave. I finally thought I had it solved, and then I remembered the importance of leveraging that good body weight inertia. I pulled myself above the overhang and cleared the face of the boulder. At the top, I thought about all the people who'd climbed around these rocks so many years before, and they decided that it was time to get down. And I also decided that it was time to investigate those pictographs. Plutonic cyanite rock that makes up Hueco Tanks sits in a 320 million year old seabed from the Carboniferous period. It was thrust to the surface from an underground volcano, and since time, weather, animals, and humans have eroded it and shaped the Huecos as we know today. I looked out over the old seabed and scanned for any wildlife, but with it being mid-May and the heat in full effect, it was unlikely to become acquainted with any. I headed down to inspect another treasure of Hueco Tanks. Its 3,000-piece outdoor art gallery, curated over thousands of years. It began here at the ground level, a true intersection of mankind and the easily accessible caves and recesses. On July 25th, 1884, Millard Fillmore Whalen and his brother Jim stopped here to water their cattle. While Jim tended the herd, Millard came across this wall, with its three-dimensional cube, other inscriptions, and red Apache figures. Millard left his brief mark before moving onward, and his story remains alive today. I could almost feel all those who had been here before me, and I reflected on that natural energy. The haunting figures are more clearly defined from this angle, with the layering on the rock being a sight in itself. With the ground level being a busy place, many middle and late archaic nomads, Mogollon and Mescalero Apache, preferred the shelter and safety of higher ground. The archaic nomads hunted with spears and atlatls from 3000 BC to 450 AD. But it was the Mescalero Apache who first depicted horses after European contact. And now there are thousands of works of art on display, and the park has substantial areas they will rotate through to minimize adverse effects of traffic. Much like an indoor art gallery, they offer different exhibits. The depth of the Hueco Tanks is surprising, and while I would have loved to stay and climb more, experience millennia of rock art, and explore the area, I didn't have the daylight. The face of the West Mountain waved me on my way. The West Mountain is accessible with a guide only, provides fascinating top rope and bouldering routes if you have the means. And while I didn't see too much wildlife at Hueco, as soon as I turned back on the road, I encountered this Pronghorn Doe. Several hundred yards to the side of my vehicle, in a sea of yucca trees and a dramatic cloudy horizon, I stopped to enjoy the natural scene. The pronghorn is the fastest land mammal in North America, and a very curious creature. With its ability to detect movement up to 4 miles away, the doe and I were aware of one another in some way. Millions of pronghorn once roamed the plains along with the bison, and still do to this day in part to conservation efforts. But fences forever altered the pronghorn's natural rangelands. The highest point in New Mexico's Cornudas Mountains, Wind Mountain, stood over the desert plains. With majestic skies above, I searched the horizon line for my goal, the Guadalupe Mountains, home to yet another Butterfield overland mail station and the highest point in Texas. At the top of Guadalupe Peak, there's a monument commemorating the 100th anniversary of the Butterfield overland mail route. As Ormsby approached the mountain in 1858, he recalled, The Guadalupe Peak loomed up before us all day in the most aggravating manner. It fairly seemed to be further off the more we traveled, rearing its head 4,000 feet above the plains and 8,700 above the level of the sea. As I'd just returned to Texas, I thought it fitting to buy a Dr. Pepper. I sipped the glass bottle as I read Ormsby's passage next to his setting sun. After twilight, I set forth to camp at Guadalupe Mountains National Park and drink my fresh water from Hueco, make my evening meal, and rest. Thanks again. I really appreciate those likes and subscriptions. We'll see you guys for one more day.